Hello, welcome. Just letting more people in real quick. Hi, hi Dalal.
Hi,
Good to see you.
good to see you too.
Hi Shireen.
Hi, Minnie.
So good to see you. Oh my gosh.
Thank you for the work you do. Happy to be here.
I'm so grateful that you made it. Excited to reconnect.
Me too.
Hi Kate. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Excited to hear this.
Uh, well, I'm really glad you all are here. We'll let more, I think, more people will be joining us on their own, but we'll go ahead and get started just so we're on time here. I'm really grateful for all of you for being here. Before we dive into anything tonight, let's just take a moment to arrive. So wherever you are, see if you can land a little more fully. Maybe uncross your arms and hands, your feet. Soften your jaw and take one slightly deeper breath in and a longer exhale out. Again, taking a deep breath in through the nose and a longer exhale out through the mouth. Dropping the shoulders, softening the chest and belly. And taking a final deep breath in and exhale, letting go. So you don't have to do anything here. You don't have to perform. You don't have to get this right. You just get to be here tonight. So this evening is going to be a little bit different than what you might be used to. We're not going to be talking about pushing harder or trying to fix yourself. We're going to be looking at something deeper because most of the people I work with are high achieving, responsible, the ones everyone relies on. And on paper, their lives work. But internally, something still feels off. Like you're doing everything right and it still doesn't feel the way you thought it would. Today, we're talking about the hidden key to rewiring yourself at the root so you can finally achieve what you know you're built for. And if you're here tonight, there's a reason. And I want to start by saying something really clearly. You're not stuck because you're not trying hard enough. You're feeling stuck because your nervous system hasn't learned a different way yet. You're not broken, and nothing about your experience is random. So for those of you I have not met yet, my name is Dr. Minnie Ratu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. And my work, it focuses on burnout, trauma, and nervous system regulation, primarily with high performing leaders, executives, physicians, founders, and people carrying a significant level of responsibility. So that could be in any facet, not just through career, but also as home in the home, maybe as moms, as caretakers. I'm also on faculty with Stanford Psychiatry's Yoga X program. And over the years, I started noticing something that didn't quite add up. The people who are the most capable were often the ones struggling the most internally. They were insightful, they were self-aware, they had done therapy, coaching, all of the things, and still they felt stuck. And what stood out to me is that insight alone wasn't creating change. Like people could explain their patterns, they understood exactly why they felt the way they did. But in the moments that mattered, under pressure, under stress, they were all having the same reactions. Not because they didn't know better, but because their system hadn't learned a different way yet. And that's when something really clicked for me. We've been trying to solve this at the wrong level because behavior doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from state. And if your system is operating from pressure, urgency, survival, it'll keep recreating the same patterns, no matter how much you understand. So what we're going to do today is make this make sense, not just intellectually, but in a way that you can actually feel and begin to shift. Because once you see this clearly, you can't unsee it. And more importantly, you can start to change it. So I hear this a lot, like this should feel different than it does. So maybe on paper, your life works. You've done all the things you were supposed to do. You've built something, you showed up, you handled what needed to be handled. And from the outside, it probably looks like you're doing well. But internally, something still feels off. Maybe it's low-level tension you can't quite shake, or a sense that you're always on, or this quiet thought in the background, like, why doesn't this feel the way I thought it would? And the people this tends to affect the most are the high achieving ones, the responsible ones, the one everyone relies on. You're the one who figures it out, who holds it together, who doesn't drop the ball. And over time, it just becomes a part of who you are, your identity. Like you become the one who keeps going, even when you're tired, the one who pushes through, even when something in your body is asking you to slow down. And because you're capable, no one questions it, not even yourself. But this is the part that most people don't understand. This isn't a motivation problem. It's not a discipline problem. It's a nervous system pattern. Your system learned that pressure is normal, that being on is required, that slowing down isn't always safe. And so even when your life changes, your internal state doesn't. And then that's why it still doesn't feel the way you thought it would. How many of you resonate with this? If you can say, like, yeah, maybe with your hands or say it out loud. You are a small group here. Yeah, yeah. What part, like what part is resonating so far? Being the responsible one or the one everyone, is it like the identity piece?
All of it.
All of it.
So
Okay.
especially the one, the sense that you're always on. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not on because maybe other people are expecting me, but I'm on because I don't feel safe unless I'm on. And that
Okay.
means on guard
Yes.
for whatever might come up because there's someone that's going to shoot an arrow and I need to be ready.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So your nervous system learned that you have to be on in order to feel safe. And so it's constantly scanning and being on the lookout just in case. And it's a adaptive response. We call this neuroadaptation. It's not It's not bad inherently, right? It's just your body trying to protect yourself. So most of us, even when we think about burnout, we've been taught about burnout, to think about burnout in a very specific way. That if you're burned out, you must be tired, you're overworked, or not managing your time well enough. And so the solutions we reach for are better routines, more structure, improved productivity, mindset work, which all of those things that can help to a point. But burnout isn't laziness. It's not poor time management. And it's not a lack of resilience. In fact, most of the people I work with are highly resilient. They learned how to keep going, perform under pressure, handle more than most people ever will. And that's exactly why this gets missed. Because burnout is a capacity problem rooted in nervous system dysregulation. What that means is your system has been operating in this prolonged state of pressure, like urgency or subtle threat. And over time, that reduces your capacity to focus, to make clear decisions, to feel present, to recover. And eventually, it doesn't matter how capable you are, your system doesn't have the capacity to sustain it. And this is why you can be doing all the right things and still feel like something isn't working. So if burnout isn't about motivation and it's not about discipline, then we have to start looking at a different level. And that level is your nervous system. Okay. Now, most approaches to change kind of start with behavior, starts with the end, this last one, right? They focus on what you're doing, what you should do differently, how to be more consistent. And if that doesn't work, they move on, maybe one level deeper to your thoughts. Change your mindset, reframe your thinking, challenge your beliefs. And that can be helpful, but it's incomplete. Because behavior doesn't actually come from thought. I used to think it comes from our thoughts until I started doing this work. It doesn't actually come from thought, it comes from state. If your system is in a state of pressure, urgency, or subtle threat, you might know you need to rest, but you keep pushing. You might know you should set a boundary, but you say yes anyways. You might know what would help and still not be able to do it. Not because you lack discipline, but because your state, your nervous system state, is driving the pattern. So the sequence actually looks like this, right? State drives your patterns, and your patterns drive your behavior. And if you don't change the state, you end up managing the same patterns over and over again. So thought work, changes thoughts, but behavior is driven by state. And this is where this work is different, right? Because we're looking to change, to really understand your level of state. And then as you understand that about yourself, your patterns begin to change naturally. And so does your behavior. It becomes more sustainable. And once you understand this, you stop trying to force change and you start creating it from the right level. How many of you have done some nervous system work, or is this new? Or maybe you've done behavior work, CBT. Yeah.
Will you define more specifically state? I kind of get what you mean, but would you define that a little bit more clearly?
Yes, thank you, Anna. That's a great question. So when we're thinking about nervous system state, what the brain and the nervous system is constantly scanning its environment for threat and for safety. It's always looking for cues of threat and cues of safety. And it's doing this throughout the day in milliseconds. And what we call this neuroceptive awareness. So your nervous system is aware. And so when it does perceive threat in its environment, and that threat could be an email, could be a facial expression, it could be a dog chasing you, doesn't matter what it is, we go into either fight or flight. So our sympathetic nervous system gets activated. Or for some of us, we go into freeze. So what we call the dorsal vagal complex. And you would learn a lot more about this if we did work together, but the dorsal vagal complex is when the nervous system state is in overwhelm. So it goes from mobile, which is in fight or flight, like I can fight, I can run, I can even think my way through this, even ruminating is in the I can mode. But if the stressor hasn't resolved, the system then goes into overwhelm and starts to shut down and becomes immobile. So it's almost like a turtle climbing up in a shell, saying, I can't. And so this is where people experience dissociation, depression, feeling stuck, shame, hopeless, just in that freeze state. Most of us have a certain habit, like a home away from home, what we call. We might go into one of the two that we live in more frequently when we're feeling overwhelmed. So once we understand the sequence, so state, pattern, behavior, we can start to ask a more important question. Where did this pattern come from? Now, for many of you, for many high achieving people, especially those who carry a lot of responsibilities, their system learned something very early on. That safety came from being needed, from being useful, from being low maintenance, the one who didn't create problems, the one who figured things out, the one who held it together. And over time, that stops being something you do and it becomes who you are. You become the one who overfunctions, the one who anticipates everyone else's needs, the one who keeps going no matter what. And because it works, it gets reinforced. But this is where it also becomes a trap, as you can see, right? Because the very thing that helped you adapt is now the thing that keeps you stuck. So you didn't burn out here because you're weak. You burned out because your system learned that self-abandonment equals safety. So when your body asks for rest, you override it. When something doesn't feel right in your intuition, you push through. When you need support, you tell yourself, I'm fine, I got it, right? Not because you don't know better, but because your system is trying to keep you safe the only way it learned how. And this is really important to understand. There's nothing wrong with you when any of this is happening, that this was adaptive, it made sense, and at one point it probably worked really well. But if we don't update this pattern, it'll keep recreating the same cycle, no matter how much insight you have. You know, feel free to ask questions as we're going along, otherwise I'll just keep moving. So feel free to pause, just ask questions if anything comes up. So when this pattern is running, it tends to show up in a few very specific ways. And once you see these, you won't be able to unsee them. So the first is pushing through. You feel tired, you feel overwhelmed. Something in your body is asking you to slow down, and you override it. You tell yourself, I'll rest later. I just need to get through this. It's not that bad.
Uh-oh.
And where'd she go?
Oh,
I don't know what happened.
I can't see her.
I can't see her either.
She cut off. It reassigned the host, so I'm assuming she lost connection.
Yeah.
There she is.
Sorry, I lost all of you for a second. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened. The Zoom just shut down. Share my screen again.
It's got me in here for some reason.
Okay. Hopefully that won't happen again. It's the thing with technology. Okay, can you all see my screen again?
Mm,
It says you started screen sharing, but it's just black.
It, you can't see it yet?
No.
no.
No,
Okay.
downloading.
Nope. I lost her again. Uh-oh.
Do any of you know her? I mean, have you worked with her at all, or?
Yeah, I did.
I've taken a class with her over a weekend. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
she's very good.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
started my graduate program with her in marriage and family therapy like 20 plus years ago. But I follow her on social media, so
Oh, there we go. There she is.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, can you all
Yeah,
hear
I
and see everything
see.
now?
You're back. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm not sure what's happening with the Zoom. Okay, can you hear me?
yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Can you see the screen?
yeah.
Okay, all right. So we were talking about these three different patterns here. So we're pushing through, right? So the person who's saying, "I'll rest later," it's not that bad. I got it, and that works. But as you know, over time, it comes at a cost. The second is earning rest, right? Like that rest is something that you have to deserve, something you get after everything is done. But the problem is everything is never done. So the rest keeps getting pushed further and further out, and eventually your system forgets how to recover. The third is insight without integration. So this is where you understand your patterns, you've done the work, you can probably explain exactly why you feel the way you do, but in the moments that matter, nothing actually changes. And and that can be one of the most frustrating places to be in. And most people I work with are in more than one of these, sometimes all three. So let's make this real for you. If you're open to it, maybe share which one do you see yourself in? Are you the person who pushes through, or you tell yourself you have to earn rest, or maybe you know everything, but it's just hard to do in the moment?
Okay, I'll give it a start just because earning
Yeah.
this one has been coming up big for me. And I
Mhm.
actually trace it to my childhood where I wasn't, my dad said, yes, you can go off and do whatever you want to do later today, Saturday, but you have to trim the lawn first. Now, this is
Mhm.
really in the old days when you used to use hand trimmers. And
Mhm.
so there's something in me that even now, when I see a mess, I can't handle the mess, like in my office. I need to clean it up, even though I know it's time to be better if I went to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for naming that, Anna, because it's this was really learned from early on with you, right? Like you have to
Yes.
earn your rest.
Yes, I mean, I really recognize it. However, and just as you
Yeah.
said, it doesn't stop it from happening.
Right, right. Yeah, it's because you're aware of it, but awareness alone, as you're saying, and then as maybe
Mm.
Uh-oh.
Mm.
We
Hey,
lost her. We
yeah,
lost her again.
I don't know what keeps
I don't know why
happening.
I'm up there.
Kate, can you
Goodness.
say more about what you just put in chat though? That's that you see it, but you still can't.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So my thing is I constantly pressure myself to push through, like I transitioned to a new town after leaving my town of 30 years. I know I need a full-time job. I know I need this. I need to find housing, blah, blah, blah. It's not all going to happen at one point, but I'm really hard on myself and now I'm kind of relentless. And then I'm not very pleasant to be around because I've put all this pressure on myself and really um, unreasonable expectations and a very, unreasonable time limit to be successful. And when it doesn't happen, I don't stop and just, be in the present. It's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just enjoying, I guess it's called, and smell the flowers. I've made little bits of progress, but yeah, I think it can be challenging to I don't have anyone telling me it's okay, relax a little, take a break. Yeah.
It does help. I think it's helping me to have somebody on my side, so to speak,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
kind of reminding me that, and just as you're doing right now, Dr. Minnie, is there's not something wrong with you. It's not from your weakness. It's because you didn't get that instruction booklet,
Mhm.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry that I keep getting cut off. I'm not sure why.
We're having interesting chats on the side.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I'm hearing that you're having that's great. And I really appreciate, that you sharing with each other and being open here. So most of you already know these patterns, like you've seen them before, you've reflected on it, you probably even tried to change them, and still they keep showing up. And that can be very incredibly frustrating because it starts to feel like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do?
It keeps switching. It keeps putting, yeah. She disappears the host.
I wonder if we should all like sign off and log back in. I don't know.
I'm not sure because you all are staying logged in, right?
Yeah,
It's
you're
just
the only
mine.
one
Yeah,
that's
we're logged in.
as the host.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know because I have like my whole wireless. It says I have all my bars. Um,
Maybe you should try with your camera off. Sometimes that helps with Zoom and the connection.
okay.
Oh,
Okay. Let me try that. Um, okay. You can try that. Thank you, Charnay. Okay. Let's try this one more time. Otherwise, because I'm so sorry, I don't want to, because I know you all,
yeah.
put this.
I see a slide. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, so it's like, you can learn, right? Like this is all the things and still, it's like these patterns just keep showing up. And that can feel super frustrating. You might say like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do what I know is right? But this is where understanding your brain and nervous system matters. When you're calm and regulated, you're operating from your prefrontal cortex. So this is the part of your brain responsible for decision making, planning, insight, self-awareness. That's the version of you that knows what to do. But when your system shifts into stress, pressure, or even any type of subtle threat, your brain shifts. So you move out of the prefrontal cortex and into more survival-based systems, your limbic system, your nervous system. And in that state, logic becomes less accessible. Insight becomes less accessible, and your system defaults to what it knows, which is your patterns. And you can't think your way out of a state that your body hasn't resolved. So you can know exactly what to do and still not be able to do it, not because you're incapable, but because your system is in a state that doesn't support that behavior. And once you understand this, it changes the question from
Hmm.
Yeah, we lost you.
I'm just going to keep going
Yeah,
every
there
time.
you go. Yep, there you go.
So it changes the question from like, why can't I just get it together, to what state is my system in right now? That's what I want you to ask yourself instead. So instead of, blaming yourself or like, what's wrong with me? What state is my system in right now? And once you start working at the level of state, everything else begins to shift. So let's actually experience this right now. Because this isn't something I want you to just understand, I want you to feel it. So wherever you are, see if you can sit a little more comfortably. Just let your shoulders drop just a bit. And if it feels okay, gently close your eyes or soften your gaze. Now bring your attention to your breath. Take a slow inhale through your nose and a slightly longer exhale through your mouth. Again, a slow inhale and a longer exhale. Let the exhale be just a little slower than feels natural. And as you do that, see if you can let your shoulders soften a little more. Unclench your jaw and relax your forehead. And just notice. No need to change anything. Just notice what's happening inside your body. And when you're ready, slowly bringing your attention back. Just notice what shifted. So that was about 90 seconds. And if you're open to it, maybe in one word, what do you feel right now? Or what did you notice in your body just by doing that?
Peace.
Yeah, a little bit of peace. Maybe, sorry, Anna.
Ease.
Ease.
Ease,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ease.
Ease. Yeah. Love that. Calm. Anshul says calm. Okay. Less tense, right? And this is what most people are missing. It's not the more insight, right? It's access to state change. Now, what you just experienced is a shift in your nervous system, even in a short moment. You likely felt some change. So imagine what becomes possible when you can do this intentionally in real time in your actual life. And this is where the work really begins, not just understanding your patterns, but having the tools to actually shift them. Okay. I'm going to share again. Hopefully this doesn't kick me out. Okay. So what you just experienced is a glimpse of what's possible, right? But real change doesn't come from one moment. It comes from a process. And so over the years, this is the framework I've developed working with high performing individuals to move from burnout into sustainable change. So I call this the unstuck blueprint. First, recognizing your triggers. So the specific situations or dynamics that consistently activate your system. So for some of you, this might look like opening your inbox and immediately feeling pressure. Being asked for something when you're already overwhelmed. Certain people or conversations where you feel like you have to perform. Maybe deadlines or expectations that create any type of urgency. Or it could be even something more subtle, like silence in a relationship or not getting a response right away. So everybody's a little bit different. So knowing what are your triggers, because these are the moments your system starts to shift in that moment, right? Second is noticing your own early signals, the cues in your body that tell you you're starting to move out of regulation. So for example, maybe your shoulders begin tightening, your breath might become more shallow. You might experience a sense of urgency or pressure rising, or even your thoughts maybe start speeding up. Irritation, you might feel more like less, more snappy, or just like this subtle sense of overwhelm. And most people miss this stage, and by the time they notice, they're already in deeper into the pattern. So this is where, when you're pausing, taking a breath like we just did, you're able to check in with yourself. How's my breath right now? Where am I noticing some tightness? Because your body is always speaking to you. Now, third is regulating based on your state, right? Meaning what you do depends on what your system needs in that moment. So that might look like taking 3 to 5 slower breaths before responding to an email, or pausing for 60 or 90 seconds before making a decision, or stepping away briefly, instead of pushing through, just taking that break. So not like dramatic changes, but small shifts that change your state. And then finally is responding intentionally. So making choices from a regulated state, right? Because you just regulated yourself in that moment. Now your limbic system hasn't hijacked, your prefrontal cortex is back online. Now you can make a decision. You can say, even you might need some space here, right? Let me get back to you, instead of immediately saying yes. Choosing to rest before you reach exhaustion. Prioritizing what actually matters instead of reacting to everything. Or choosing not to engage when something doesn't align. So this is how insight becomes a way of living, because now you're not just understanding your patterns, you're interrupting them and replacing them with something new. And over time, this doesn't just change how you feel, it changes how you show up in your work, in your relationships, in your decisions. And when this becomes consistent, that this is when the real transformation happens. So how many of you are aware of your triggers and your patterns? Have you ever written them down, or do you know in yourself when you're experiencing a trigger? Stop sharing this.
I do, I know several of them.
Mhm.
When I'm feeling time pressure,
Yeah,
I don't do well with time pressure
yeah.
unless I can do it once I know what it is that I need to do.
Mhm.
The time pressure makes my head feel tight and I can't think clearly.
Yeah,
Once I can think clearly and know what I need to do, then I can go ahead and operate. And the
yeah.
other thing is I've recognized people's facial expressions or their tone in their voice. I'm
Mhm.
very highly sensitive. And if I sense that they are not, that um, there's no sincere feeling being acknowledged here, it puts
Yeah,
me on edge because I go, oh my God, when is the shit gonna hit the fan and I'm gonna be the one that's the culprit?
right. Wow. So you're not only experiencing the shift, in the moment when you notice that facial expression or somebody's tone of voice, you're also anticipating danger, right? Like, okay, when is this good? When is this really going to explode? And when is it going to get worse? Like your brain starts anticipating, and so in real time, right? And then where did that chat go? Okay. And then Kate says, you still can't catch yourself to stop and pause, right? So you might know.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
the bad pattern and mine is a repeated like defense. I can be very reactive. I actually had a manager tell me that I was very defensive, and this was years ago, and I've been trying to work on it, and it's something like it's so innate in me. I don't know how it falls into all my relationships, and I can't figure out why I'm that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
So,
pausing thing is so important, and
mhm,
with all of our phone use and everything, and just everything is happening so fast all the time. It's like, ugh, why can't I pause more?
yeah.
There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that can be hard, right? When you're not
Yeah.
used to it and you're practicing, it's learning to pause. There's so much power in that pause,
Hmm.
right? So even when people start to understand their patterns, and even when they have the right tools, a lot of times they don't see lasting change. And here's why, is because they're chasing breakthroughs, but they didn't build the patterns. They look for, those big insights, powerful moments, emotional releases or motivation. And those moments, they can feel incredible. They can feel like everything just clicked. But then a few days later, a week later, they're back in the same pattern. And it can start to feel discouraging. But this is where understanding how the brain actually changes matters, because the brain doesn't change through intensity, it changes through repetition. Small shifts, repeated consistently. That's what actually rewires your system, not one powerful moment. But what you do again and again, that's what's going to create the shift. So if you ever felt like you had a breakthrough, but you couldn't sustain it, that's why. Nothing was wrong with you. The process just wasn't designed for how your brain actually changes. And this is exactly what we focus on, you know, in the work that we do, is not chasing intensity, but building those subtle patterns that your system can actually hold. Because when something is repeated enough, it stops feeling like effort and just starts becoming who you are. Right? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Um,
Just keep my video off, just in case. We can share. Okay. So it's not through like big breakthroughs that we're looking for, right? The real shift happens through these subtle changes that we're practicing over and over again. So for a moment, I want you to imagine something, not as a goal, but as a different way of being. Imagine making decisions without overthinking every step, without knowing, you know, every little thing, and trusting yourself enough to act on it. Imagine having energy that actually sustains, not from pressure or adrenaline, but from a system that knows how to recover, right? Without it costing your health, where you're still driven, still capable, but no longer operating from pressure. Because I still want you to be driven and get things done and be capable, because you're capable. But we're doing it in a way where you're building capacity. Now, this isn't hypothetical, this is trainable. This is what happens when your system learns a different way, not through force, but through regulation. And if that version of you feels even slightly familiar, like something you've been moving toward, then you're already closer than you think. Right? So I know, I apologize for all the technical difficulties we've been having, but before we move forward, I want to pause for a moment because I know I've been covering a lot. And I don't want this just to stay at the level of information. So if you're open to it, just take a second and notice, you know, what's resonated most for you so far. You know, maybe it's your state versus behavior or self-abandonment, or maybe this is making sense where it's explaining something for yourself. Because the moment something resonates, it's no longer just information, it's personal. And usually that the thing that resonates the most is also the place where the work is. Okay. Hopefully everyone is still here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, we
Okay.
talked about
Yeah.
it today in our session.
Okay.
But self-abandonment for me is clearly where more of the work needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Charnay. I know we talked about that as well. So
And
if you've been, yeah, go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
going to say, and just recognizing that that's what it is. And after we talked earlier, I thought more about it. And I think a lot of the self-abandonment, I think also maybe comes from, you know, maybe like my mom and like her not really being like, her and my parents not being very emotionally in tune or intelligent or mature, and like my feelings not mattering. And I think it comes from that as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right, because this has been wired, right, in your system, especially from our immediate caregivers, like our parents, or our communities, the families that we grew up in.
Oh, she'll be back.
I'm noticing so many things that she says make sense, and I hear that. But then there's another moment where she would say, when she just said brain change,
Patterns.
small repeated shifts, and it's the small repeated subtle changes that hit me in a way that wasn't through my brain. It was like
You felt it.
I felt it. Yeah. It wasn't foreign to me. It was like it was I've had a little bit of that experience, and I'm now so hungry to have more of that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for naming that, Anna. Because, all of the work that you've already been doing, that I mean, there's a reason that, that something is here for you. And I love that this is resonating for you.
I think
So,
part of it is for me is that I have done the other work, and I've been trying the other way, and
yeah.
I've seen that it only takes me so far. And now I've actually been able to, in small instances, been able to have a change. And I go, oh my God, I didn't do what I normally did. And I just had that earlier today, which is part of the reason why I didn't get on here till a little bit late. But anyway, it's resonating with me a lot here. Yeah, like
good.
next steps.
So you're able to catch yourself at times. You said, I didn't do what I normally do.
Yes, it just happened today where normal, and so there was like, I took a deep breath and I said, oh, wait, I know where he's going with this. I know where this is going to go if I respond in the way that I feel like I want to respond. I've been down this path a million times. I'm going to do it differently. And I stepped away, and it was so liberating. I felt like really new life was flowing through me. And
Wow.
and I didn't feel guilty about it or go, oh dear, I'm stepping, oh, he's going to be really, now he's really going to get mad, anyway. So yes.
Wow. So everything that you're sharing, that this work,
Come back.
okay. So this work that we're talking about today, it lives inside a program that I created. It's called Unstuck, Burnout to Breakthrough. It's a 12-week clinical program, and it's designed specifically for high achieving women who are ready to move out of burnout and into the sustainable, regulated performance. And the reason this works is because we're not working just at one level. We're working at the level of your nervous system, your psychology, and your behavior. And so that change doesn't just happen, it holds. And this is not coaching. This is applied clinical transformation. So it's very structured, it's intentional, and it's designed to help you build capacity. So some of you in this group today are in my current Unstuck program. So I really appreciate you still being here today. But so this program, what we're working on is, instead of trying to think your way out of burnout, you're learning how to work with your system in a way that actually creates lasting change. And so why would this be different, right? Especially if you've already done therapy, you've done the mindset work, you've built routines. And that's a really important question, because most approaches are working at the wrong level. They're mindset only, focused on changing how you think, not how your system responds. They're productivity based, trying to optimize your output without addressing the pressure driving it. So it's almost like surface level wellness, and that things that, feel good in the moment, but they don't actually create lasting change. Now, unstuck is different, because we start here with your nervous system, not just as an afterthought, but as the foundation. And then from there, we create identity level change, not just shifting what you do, but who you are, who you're becoming when you're doing it. And when we focus on this structured integration, because without integration, nothing sticks. And so we're changing, state, pattern, and then behavior. So you don't just have so that you don't just have a breakthrough, but you're really able to make sustainable change that last, that are long lasting. I'm going to try to share my screen one more time so you can see this. Okay. Okay. So the change doesn't just happen here, right? We want it to carry into your actual life. So because this isn't just a collection of tools, it's a progression. So in the first phase, we focus on awareness and regulation, because before anything changes, your system has to feel safe enough to change. So this is where you start to understand not just what you're doing, but why your system keeps going there. And more importantly, you learn how to regulate in real time, not after the fact, but in the moment it matters. And each week you'll receive these guided resources to support this, so short practices, reflection prompts, simple tools you can actually use in your day, because this isn't just about learning it here, while we're together, but it's about starting to live it right away. Then we move into pattern interruption. So this is where things start to shift, because now you're not just aware, you have the capacity to choose differently. So we begin to interrupt the overthinking, the overfunctioning, the automatic yes, the internal pressure, and replace it with responses that are actually aligned with who you want to be. And again, you'll have weekly support here too, right? So I'm always giving structured exercises, communication scripts, tools each week to practice in real conversations and real moments. So you're not guessing, you're actually practicing. And then in the final phase is integration, because insight doesn't change your life, as you know, integration does. And this is where we make sure this actually works in your relationships, in your work, under pressure. And then we build your, what we call the personal breakthrough blueprint. So you don't leave just with ideas, you leave with a way of operating. And through the entire program, you continue receiving curated resources. So the guided prompts, reflection frameworks, to really reinforce the changes that you're experiencing. And so the people, who have been through it, some of you maybe can speak to it that are in it right now, they notice that it isn't just that you feel better, you begin to function differently. You know, it's not just, you know, like, oh, you're noticing, yes, I feel less anxious and less burned out, not because their lives suddenly became easier, but because their system is no longer operating from pressure. So they're not as reactive naturally, they're not as overwhelmed. They're learning how to create more space there. Right? So this is so just to be really clear who this is actually for, this is for you if you are, you know, high performing, if you're capable, if you handle a lot and people rely on you. This is for you if you've done the work, therapy, coaching, personal development, and you still feel like something isn't fully shifting. You know, this is for you if you're tired of pushing through and you want to do it a different way. And this might not be the right fit if you're looking for a quick fix or surface level strategies or something to just temporarily feel better, because that's not what this is, right? This is for people who are ready to do this work at a deeper level. And if that's you, I would love to have you.
شوفي ايه اعطيتك فعلا ماما اعطيتك انت متعبه انت بعد 9 حطيت لك الستة almost done about 5 minutes almost done لحظة بس
Okay. So if that's you, I would love to have you there. I'm going to send you all the slides because I know we were interrupted. So you probably, if you wanted to take more notes, I will email each of you the slides. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties we're having today. I'm gonna share this one more time. Okay. Yeah, so I apologize for all the issues my Zoom is having today. But I will definitely, I'll email you all of the slides with everything that we covered today. And I also wanted to share, just for coming to this webinar today, I'm going because I want you to start actually applying this immediately, not just leave with insight, but something you can use in your real life. So for those of you who feel ready, I've created a few additional supports. So for the next 24 hours, you'll receive, I'm going to send you a 90-second reset protocol, something you can use in real time during your day in moments of pressure. In addition, if you do join, I'm going to give each of you a one-on-one session that's included, and also a $250 off. You can use the code Unstuck. This is the QR code. You can take it now, or you can just go to drmini.co and you'll see the tab for the Unstuck. You can see that there. And because you attended this webinar, So thank you all for still being here with my thing keep getting cut off. Do you have any questions, any thoughts before we close today?
Dr. Minnie, can you be a little bit more specific about, um, I didn't quite get how the course actually runs. Do we meet on Zoom, as a
Yes.
group? And
Yes, so it's online. It's through a program through a telehealth platform called Simple Practice. It's a HIPAA compliant platform. It's on, and so we're starting our next. So it's on Tuesday evenings. Our next cohort starts on May 5th. I will email all of this information to
Okay.
you because I know I keep getting interrupted with being cut off.
Okay.
But I'll definitely send you all of the information. And yeah, so it's on Tuesday evenings. It's from 5:30 to 7 p.m.
And are there opportunities for group discussion? Because I find I learn a lot actually from listening and interacting with others.
Yes, absolutely. So it is a group, so that way there's opportunity for discussion and for questions and people learning from one another. Absolutely.
I really thank you for your seeing through the fallacies of some of the current wisdom that's out there
Of
and
course.
naming
Yes.
that. That in itself is such a gift.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for resonating with that. What I'll do is again, I'll send you each an email after this with the slides and additional information. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me back.
Thank you, Minnie.
Of course. Anything else before we close tonight? Okay, well, thank you so much for your patience and for still being here, writing this out. I know we went over time.
Oh, thank you.
Bye. I'm back.